I'm Andrew Laurie.
And I'm Ewan Laurie.
We farm here at Grangehall, Fertility in Lanarkshire with our dad, and it's a family run business. We've got a full-time worker and a part-time milker. We currently have 245 pedigree Holsteins, either milking or dry, with 180 young stock followers. The cows are currently averaging about 10,300 with a 4.1% butter fat and 3.2% protein. The preg rate is currently about 23% and the calving interval is about 385 days. We feed, our main ration consists of silage, whole crop, Invergold or super grains depending on what's available, barley or wheat, homegrown, ground maize, minerals, megalac and bespoke blend from Davidsons, which is made up to suit the ration. We currently farm 400 acres between a main farm Grangehall and Fertility Bank, which is just a mile up the road. We have 220 acres, the last 2 or 3 years has been set aside for 3 cuts of silage. Third cut doesn't always end up with 220 acres, it just depends how much first and second cut is. We also grow about 100 to 110 acres of our own grain, 50 to 60 acres of whole crop wheat for our own whole crop use, and we also grow 40 to 50 acres of winter barley or spring barley, which is all combined and is used for our own use for bedding and for feeding. All main field work is done by ourselves, except from the chopper comes in at silage time with the buckrake man and the rake, and also we get a contractor in to do the combining. We have our own umbilical system now, and we recently just put a dribble bar on the tanker, just to try and get more use out of the nitrogen in the slurry. I think the way the price of fertiliser is going, I certainly think it will be a good investment. We cut and ted everything ourselves depending on the weather. Currently 40 to 45% of the milking herd are heifers. This is only due because the last year or so we've been expanding from around 170 to 180 milkers to currently between 210 and 220 milking most of the time. The ration down the passage is fed for a maintenance plus 32, and we also have outer parlour feeders which are fed with Davidsons Autolat dairy cake. It's a non-mineralised cake, as we already put the minerals down the feed passage. We have 3 groups of cows. We have a main group which consists of 120 to 140 early to mid lactation cows, and a late lactation group of about 60 to 70 cows. And we've just recently invested and put new cubicles in our pen for a fresh group which currently has about 30 cows in it and a new outer parlour feeder. Dry cow housing, which is something we've spent a lot of money on in the last year or 2. We used to dry cows used to all be in straw pens, but now we have 2 main groups and a new dry cow house, which is the far offs and our transition group from the last 3 to 3.5 weeks, which basically they get the same forage ration right through with a little bit of soya, a small amount of homegrown barley, and the last 3 weeks they get a transition feed mixed in with it. Current fertility figures, I think as I've already said before, are currently around about a 23% preg rate. We're looking to improve that the next year or 2. We get the vet in fortnightly for routines. Everything over 50 days is inspected by the vet. If there's nothing wrong, they get left, and we get rechecked 2 weeks later if they haven't came in season. We do occasionally do fresh checks depending on the cow, if we know they've had difficult calving or twins or they've looked dirty, but generally we don't have a lot of problems that way, and we feel the 50 days works okay. Everything in the dairy herd now is AI'd with sex semen or Angus or British Blue, depending on the cow and the yield. Hardly anything will get a 3rd service of sex semen. If they're not in calf, the first 2 services sex semen, generally, apart from a handful of cows, they'll go straight to the beef pool. The heifers are all done with sex semen or Aberdeen Angus, easy calving, and if they're not in calf after 3 or 4 services, they run with an Aberdeen Angus sweeper bull.
Heifers are generally brought inside, or they're either inside or they're brought inside for AIing. and we're looking to calve heifers at an average of 24 months. These heifers are kept on a breeder's diet throughout the whole AIing process, and once they're PD'd and calved, they run with the sweeper bull.
Lameness is something we've tried hard over the last 2 or 3 years to improve. I wouldn't say it was a major problem before, but it could always be better. We have our foot trimmer comes in every fortnight now, and everything is done 5 to 6 weeks pre-drying off, and also 50 to 60 days post-calving. We used to do everything at drying off, but we feel this is a stress time when the cow's getting dried off and going into a new housing. It was something we thought, and would be advised, would be better done earlier. So 5 to 6 weeks pre-drying off, I would say, has made a big difference, and it's good to have a routine. We used to do all the feet ourselves, and in busy times it was something that maybe got neglected a bit, but now every fortnight the cows are selected out for the foot trimmer coming in.
Young stock rearing is also a job that's done all totally in-house, with calves snatched at birth and put in double pens, and they're reared in these double pens for the first 2 or 3 weeks of life. Both beef and the dairy heifer calves are all reared exactly the same for the first 6 to 8 weeks of life, and then the beef calves are then sold through Lanark Market. The heifer calves are reared looking to achieve 0.85 to a kilo of daily live weight gain, feeding a high protein milk replacer and feeding them over a kilo and 8 litres of milk concentrate per day. They're reared on calf pellets on straw, and once they're 2 or 3 weeks old, they're batched up into pens of 8 to 10 calves, and they're in these pens probably 2 to 3 weeks post-spaining. Spaining takes place around 9 to 10 weeks ideally. From here they go into a separate young stock shed, and they're kept on 2.5 kilos of a high protein cake fed in straw. They're kept in small batches for as long as possible, up to 6 to 7 months old, where they're then taken to our other farm and they're reared on either haylage or silage, fed on a 2.5 kilo of cake and barley blend that's mixed by ourselves, and they're kept on this diet right through to bulling and post-bulling, where they're then, generally it's just a silage-based diet they're on after this.
Last 10 years we have invested quite heavily. We're fortunate to be in a Muller Tesco contract, and we do get a bit more money for being in that contract generally most years. The last 10 years we've put up a new dairy, new milking parlour, some new cattle housing, and a 1 million gallon concrete slurry tower about 9 years ago on an SRDP grant. This was something we were going to do anyway, but the fact the SRDP grant was there, we took advantage of it. We've also put 2 new whole crop pits up, we've put a new calf shed up, we've put a new young stock shed up. We have last 2 years ago we put new dip and flush clusters in the parlour. Mainly at one point staffing was maybe a little bit shorter. At busy times you felt it was taking too long to dip in every cow after milking, and we put this in. It's helped cell counts a bit, but I think the biggest investment we've done in the last 18 months is we put new dry cow housing in, and we've taken the calving cows away from being on straw for 3 weeks, and I think this has significantly reduced the early lactation status along with the cell count. Currently the cell count on CIS and the milk records over the last 12 months is sitting at an average of 115. It's also reduced bedding costs because everything's on sawdust. We've got just-in-time pen, which isn't always that straightforward because there's quite a few cows catch us out and we have calves born in the cubicles. But they're snatched as soon as we see them, and we don't feel this is given much of a problem. It's also, we've put the resin flooring down at the feed barrier, and this has helped increase intakes. So much so that when we put the cows in the dry cow shed to start with, we felt that we had to up the ration by 10 to 15% within the first week.
The most recent investment we've done is the old calving pen has been converted into a new fresh calf cow accommodation with easy fix cubicles. We've done the investment in the cows, the lying times, the cow comfort and everything. We think this is really going to be a massive benefit to the fresh calf cows going forward. The low yielding cubicles for the cows, they were also put in probably 17 or 18 years ago, and they'd come to the end of their life. So it wasn't really up for much debate when we were talking about taking them out and replacing them. So just in the last 6 weeks, they've been taken out and replaced with the easy fix cubicles also, and cow comfort and lying time in them, we've noticed a big difference. Also increasing the length of bed for the cows to increase the comfort. This all goes hand in hand to the cow comfort and the fresh calved and the calving cows, all goes hand in hand. And most recently, Andrew was down at Telford at the TMS dinner. TMS is a transition management system for the dry cows, where once a month there's a girl comes in through Premier Nutrition, through Davidsons, and she monitors the cow condition, lameness and rumen fill. Well, we were invited down because we were in the final 6 for the under 250 cow herd, which was a great achievement for ourselves. We actually went down and we won the award, which was one of the awards that we never ever thought it was possible. We thought this was great. But after that, there was an overall winner where the 8 different categories all got put in and got put forward for the overall nominations. Andrew, I think, had too many drinks, but he was still surprised that we were one of the top 6, sorry. Well, I think he had a few more drinks, and when they read out his name that we were the overall winners, it really was the biggest surprise that we could ever have. I don't know what it means to everybody that's won it in the past, but it's one of the awards that really does mean an awful lot to us, and it just shows that our investment over the last 30 years has made a significant impact on our business. Over the last 10 or so years, Davidsons have been the main supplier for our blends, for the dairy herd, young stock and the sheep side of the business. We like to use Davidsons because we get a nice friendly rep coming in, John Rogers, and John's always at the end of the phone coming in to sample silage or whole crop regularly or whenever we want them. The other benefit for using Davidsons is cows like stability and they don't like too many changes. And we just feel for an extra pound or 2 here and there sometimes that we don't like to jump about and swap back and forward to different suppliers.